Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone out there? I'm hoping and praying that everything is okay with this internet because, oh my gosh, Mercury retrograde, baby. I know we can't blame everything on Mercury retrograde, but you know what? I hope that all is going well. This is Tyra Omi Lade, your goddess guru, and y'all know I love helping women align with their life purpose so that they confidently and courageously live the amazing lives they know they deserve. And it's all about the goddess lifestyle for me. And one of the things that I love doing is looking at astrology, because astrology, I'm telling you, y'all, don't sleep on astrology. Yeah, sometimes you have to hire somebody to tell you what it means because it is a lot. Oh my gosh, there's so much to learn. But what I will tell you is this: it truly can reveal the roadmap. And one of the ways it's so wonderful to learn about or learn how astrology works is by looking at other people's charts. Hey, Jasmine. Good. I'm glad this seems interesting. One of the sisters in the inner circle said, because she knows I love Malcolm X and his birthday was the other day. She said, I think it would be interesting to look at his chart. And I was like, you know what? Bet. Sometimes y'all come on. Hey, baby Blue Grace, how are you? Sometimes people are like, hey, let's talk a little bit more about astrology. And there's no better way to understand astrology than by looking at someone else's chart, especially someone who's famous that we know. And I always think, you know what? Who looks at when I say our people, I'm talking about Black folk, who are change makers, leaders, elders. Who's looking at their charts? I've never seen anybody look at Malcolm X's chart. So I'm not saying I'm the first, but you know what? Hi, ascending butterfly. Okay, so let me pull up this chart so that we can begin to talk. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. So, one of the first things that we always want to do, because oftentimes people are like, I know my sun sign, but I don't know anything else. So, let's look at what are the main signs. And I got his birth details from Astro Theme. So I was impressed to see that there was a birthday. I was really happy to see that there was a birthday for Malcolm X. Now, one of the things that we have to look at is, okay, we know he's a Taurus because his birthday is May 19th. So one of the things that I'll say about him being a Taurus that I loved is Malcolm X was a good looking man. Malcolm X, to me, I know everybody may not think this, but I always think, dang, Malcolm X had it going on. He was very handsome. And to me, that's part of what makes Tauruses Tauruses. You meet somebody with Taurus energy, especially if their sun, their moon, and the ascendant. Tauruses are just beautiful because that's what Taurus indicates. So let me know, do you agree? Is Malcolm X handsome? But it's interesting. I can't say that I've looked. Yeah, Malcolm X just seemed to be tall, long, and lean. And maybe that comes from this Venus. Where's my Mercury retrograde is trying to mess with me. I'm blaming Mercury retrograde right now. Oh, okay. So why was Malcolm X perhaps tall and long? Well, his Venus is in Gemini. Gemini is an energy that, to a certain degree, can give people a youthful look. And I don't know. Sometimes when I think Gemini energy, it's sort of lean. It's lean. That's not to say all people who are Geminis are lean, but it all depends what's in your chart, y'all. As you can see, it's a lot going on. Like, you don't just have a sun sign, all right? Another thing with Malcolm X that I think is interesting is he has Jupiter in the first house, and Jupiter makes everything big. And so this first house right here has to do with the body. So it could be he was so tall, if I remember correctly. Y'all, I'm not super good at details like that, if I haven't studied it in a while. But Jupiter makes everything big. And so it could be this Jupiter made him very tall, even though it was in Capricorn. So that's something that I think is interesting. Just thinking about how he looks. Another thing about Malcolm X is Malcolm X did have mercurial type energy. When I say mercurial, it's the way he spoke. He was very witty and yeah, just really good with words. And so Mercury, his Mercury is in Taurus, um, in the fifth house, which could make him be really good actually at speaking. Um, because Taurus is artsy. It has this creative way, but there's also indications where I see Mercury and Venus, they're in each other's signs. And so, yeah, this ability for him to just be able to speak so well, so eloquently, in a way that at times is just witty. Sometimes people would try to get him, they would ask these questions, and it's like, you just asked Malcolm X that, and he would just make that comeback, right? And if you're commenting, I'll come back to the page with the comments. I can't see the comments just right now. So that's something else that I think is interesting. And if anybody studies astrology, let me know. Do you see that yourself? Because I know we all have different ways of interpreting astrology. But yeah, that's something that I do think is interesting. So his sun is in Taurus, which is, we all know he's a Taurus. And he has extra energy in Taurus because he has a planet there. Okay. The next one, we talked about his ascendant. His ascendant is Capricorn. Let me tell y'all about Capricorn. Capricorn can bring some stuff like, oh my gosh, Capricorn, this is not an easy sign to be born under. I don't care if it's your sun, your moon, your ascendant. This is the energy of karma. It is the energy that carries a lot of burden. But the thing about Capricorn is Capricorn will succeed. It's very important to Capricorn to succeed. And so just like we know Malcolm X went to prison, he had the change that happened to him while he was in prison, and he came out and excelled. Capricorn is like the leader, especially when it comes to something like a hierarchy. But it carries a lot of karmic energy. And to have Capricorn on that first house, a lot of times you talk to people with Capricorns. Sometimes Capricorns aren't happy because they have endured some stuff. It's not easy being Capricorn. Y'all cut the Capricorn some slack. So yeah, that's really interesting that he has Capricorn. Sometimes Capricorns are like old souls. They are like old souls. And sometimes you'll even notice Capricorns look younger the older they get because it's that age of wisdom, or, it's like that wise energy, that elder energy. It becomes its best self when they get older, which we know Malcolm X didn't live super long. And he did have, to me, a rather youthful look, given that he is a Capricorn rising. But one of the things that he did have going for him is he has Jupiter in the first house. And Jupiter brings good luck, even though Jupiter is like no good. Let me not say no good. It's not its best self in Capricorn, because Jupiter's like, hey, I want to stretch out, baby. I want to just, let's go have some fun. Let's just do this thing up big. It's almost like Jupiter's like no limits. And Capricorn is like, hold up, slow down. What's the rules? We need to follow the rules. Let's do this step by step by step. And look, don't be spending all my money. We need to be, keeping a tight rein on this money. And so because he has Jupiter there, it did allow him to be more expansive. And, Jupiter is great wisdom. This is one of the reasons why he was just so wise. And matching it with this energy that he has with this Gemini and this Venus with this Gemini energy, Mercury and Venus, they're working with each other, with this wit and this ability to just really speak so well. That was part of what I see here for Malcolm X. And then something else that I see is down here in his house of communication is Uranus. And, he was about progress, forward thinking. The other day when I was looking up quotes by him, one of the things he said was he didn't have an education. I was like, what? Wait a minute. It's like he's so brilliant. And that's Uranus. It brings brilliance. It brings brilliance that nobody else gets. This is why he's still so relevant. He was ahead of his time to a certain degree. This is why so many of us still love him and why his words speak so much. Now, I'm 51. And I was like, I'm all in for Malcolm X. But let me tell you, the young people love Malcolm X too. And that's because he had just this expansive way of thinking, this very progressive way of thinking. And this could bring some of the shock that he would bring, with his words. And to a certain degree, when you have a mind that's Uranian, you cannot be controlled. And he was just so powerful. We know that even, his own people were uncomfortable with him. Let me see what y'all saying over here, because I'm all in. Let me see here. I recently found my North Node. I'm a Taurus sun. Greetings, Kiki. Kiki, what house is your what house is your North Node in? That's what matters so much, the house. Okay, so Jasmine's with me. He's handsome. Yes. Stephanie, combining history with astrology. And you say he's handsome too. Yes. Yes, I love history with astrology. I want to become better at doing this actually, because there's just so much to learn, and it helps you to realize there's very little that's happenstance. Like, I'm just looking at his natal chart, but we could start looking at like when he was this age, what was going on in his chart that indicated he would be in jail or he's coming out of jail. When I first looked, okay, check this out, y'all. When I first looked at his chart, I'm like, why did Malcolm X go to prison? Like, this 12th house oftentimes indicates the 12th house could be related to prison. Let me put it that way. The 12th house is related to prisons. It's related to places that are away. And it's almost like, well, not almost like, they have their own like they're their own world. So like when you go to a spa or when you go to the hospital, college universities where there's like this dorm-like setting, like everything is right there on campus, as well as prisons. And so the ruler of this 12th house is Jupiter. Something was going on at the time, because he has that here in the first house that could have indicated, I don't know if I would look at it and say to him, if I read his chart before he went to prison, oh, you're going to go to prison one day. I don't know if I would have said that. But I would have said getting away is important for you. You need to take time to get away and rejuvenate yourself and, maybe go to a foreign land, which we do know he did travel to foreign lands. But this could have indicated that. I don't know. I don't remember the year or anything like that. Maybe I'll study it a little bit more and we'll just use Malcolm X as a case study. I'll find some significant dates and then we can begin to look to see what was going on in his chart that indicated potentially he could have gone to prison or he is coming out of prison. But one thing I can tell you is Malcolm X going into prison did shift quite a bit in his life. It is where he, found that man, if I remember correctly, y'all. I'm so sorry because I don't remember all the details. And yes, I did see the movie, and so I'm sort of back playing that. I read the book, all that, but I can't remember all the details. It's been so long. But it seems like there was some man in prison who helped him to get on the right path. Especially with the nation. And so this Saturn house, this Sagittarius house is the house, or Sagittarius has to do with expansion. It literally is that sign that has to do with, like, yeah, he could have gone there, but then he got expanded. He came out and he never went back for the same reason that he went. But Um, Now I'm going to tell you the moon is interesting. His moon is very, very interesting. If I did not know whose chart this moon would stand out to me. This fourth house alone is one of the reasons Capricorns have it rough. And it all depends on how things are in their chart, what's going on in the chart. But this is one of the reasons Capricorns have it rough. And it is because this Aries house, this is not, see, the fourth house has to do with home and family and love and care. And, I relate it to the mother. Some people just say it could be with a nurturing parent, mother or father, male or female. But is Aries huggy? Like Aries is known for war, right? And so sometimes Capricorns, not all, but sometimes Capricorns, they come from, it's rough. Maybe mama's not so sensitive, or it was just rough growing up. So his moon is in Aries, and it's close to this thing right here, which is called the wounded healer in the fourth house. The fourth house also has to do with our emotions. I would look at this chart and be like, whoa, I wonder if this person had a rough childhood. I can imagine this person had a rough childhood, like very, very rough. Violence in the childhood. And we know, my God, I don't even want to say it. We know his father was murdered. A lot of wounding, like that shifted that whole family. And I can't remember everything that went down with the mama, but that broke her. It seems like I remember that breaking her. And I don't know if she had mental health issues. I can't remember everything that went down, but I do know that shifted everything. Why was Malcolm X so hot and fiery? Because his moon is in Aries. He was like, I am here for this. Are you here for it? Because I am here for it. You have every woman I know, and I'm sure I know some men, but I've seen a lot of women with moon in Aries. They may have nice little high voices, but oh my goodness, they will cut you. They will get you if you go there with them. So this is part of his fire, So I love that about Malcolm X. Another thing that I think is interesting is his Venus is in the sixth house. What does the sixth house have to do with? It has to do with service. The sixth house has to do with problems, service, and helping people who are down and out. So I'm like, yeah, that was Malcolm X. And something else I think about is this Mars. And I've not looked at his chart until today, y'all. So I hadn't even really broken it all down. So I'm just looking at it as I go. His Mars is in Cancer. And Mars has to do with what are you passionate about? What are you going to fight for? And Cancer is your heritage. And so, yeah, Malcolm X, he was all about his people. So I find that to be very, very interesting. And yeah, I do think it's interesting that he has Mars in the seventh house. I don't ever remember hearing much about him and his wife, Betty Shabazz, and how they got along. But I can imagine he was very passionate. However, sometimes when Mars is in the seventh house, it's like, that's a lot of energy regarding relationships. So I can imagine he's passionate. But the other thing about it too is this house has to do with the community. And so, she being a part of the community, especially, coming from within the nation with him. But his marriage and the community, you can see the connection between these two houses right here. and how one supported the other. But yeah, that passion, like he had a love for organizing and, being in the community. And he probably just was married to a woman who was like, I have the ability to understand it. And, the other thing is, she was down too. She was an activist too. Like, if I didn't know this person, I would say, hey, you probably want to be with somebody who's an activist, who's, a fierce caretaker of the children, loves being a mom, but also is somebody that is, a big activist for their family. But yeah, relationships were very important for Malcolm X, especially one-to-one type relationships. But I can tell you, he was very much into the community. And but when you have Scorpio someplace, where are you going to experience your trauma? And he's got Saturn there. I'm like, oh my gosh, Malcolm X is the man, baby. He is the man. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, had a lot of supportive energy there, but um, yeah. And the other thing too is I could kind of see how Malcolm X was destined to be a star because his son is in the fifth house. And whenever you have a sun in the fifth house, it means that you have come here to shine. And how is he shining? He's shining through, speaking. And let me tell you something else. Taurus actually has to do with history. Taurus has to do with legacy, with heritage. And so this is one of the reasons he was just so passionate about his people. But that's at odds with this house that has to do with the community. And Scorpio is where you may experience your trauma. And so, yeah, he could experienced it at the hands of his community, people who are like his siblings, because it's Mercury that's opposing this Saturn, and Saturn opposing Mercury, and like he's standing out. And then what? The community, which is this, you can think about how they were like, we're gonna silence him. I can't remember all the stuff that happened, but stuff just started going awry. And it's like, we're gonna shut him down. Now it's multiple charts that we live according to. So, it's other things that could have been indicated more precisely why that could be. But I can see in his chart where he could have some clashes with trying to be himself. But the community is like, nah, bruh, nah, bruh. And it's interesting that this point that has to do with career is in a house that is about, hey, let's bring some harmony, let's bring some peace, let's bring some let's have some negotiations and some discussions. But it's at this point where, yeah, we need to do that. But the next step is actually like, I'm willing to burn the whole thing down. That's what the next step is for this particular, point of career. I'm going to try to work with you, but if I cannot work with you, I will burn the whole thing down. Like, dang, Malcolm X had a tough chart, and he has North Node. And I'm going to come back and see if Kiki tell me what house her North Node is in, but he has North Node in the 8th house. The 8th house is about trauma. And he was built for so much of what he was destined to experience, so much of what he came here to experience, to be a leader in dealing with the trauma. And, it's Leo. He was unapologetic about it. And so, yeah, even down here in this 2nd house, he was a natural at organizing people. It seems like I even remember, from his earlier years, he was so good at leading groups and being a part of a group. But he did actually come here to stand out. He really did. He came here to be a standout. He did exactly what he came here to do. Hey, Johnny. Aquarian T, is she here? Where's Aquarian T? Oh, hey. Let's see here. His mom was committed to an asylum unjustly. Ah, okay. Yep. Yep, that's it. I knew something happened with the mom, and that shifted them even more. Oh, wonderful. Right, Jasmine. Moon and Aries will cut you. So yeah, Johnny, you're the reason I'm doing this. You asked, and I was like, that is such a good idea. So yeah, so much of what I see in this chart, I can see why it happened. I even think I see perhaps, why it was such a traumatic end for his father. So yeah, Malcolm X's chart is a little like it has a lot of goodness in it, and you can see the work that he did. But I do say that some of it is definitely a challenge. I'm like, whoa, this is a lot. But he brought it, he did that thing. I encourage you to do that thing. He didn't know anything about astrology. So sometimes it's just about just do the dang thing, But the other thing to think about is if you do have access to astrology, avail yourself to it, because maybe somebody could have told them. I'm just being 100 with y'all. Maybe somebody could have told Malcolm X, hey, look, something is coming up in your chart. This is how these are the steps you need to take to protect yourself. So that's something to think about. I'm becoming more and more convinced that, most people don't believe in astrology because we've been brainwashed to think astrology is bad, because actually astrology works. You can predict so much. You can know, like, yes, you are born with a blueprint. Don't let anyone say, how we hear, well, babies aren't born with a manual. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They are born with a manual. It's a lot that we can predict with astrology. It's a lot that we can understand. So when I started learning about astrology, one of the first things I did was I said, oh, I got to start looking at my kids' charts. And so once I started looking at their charts, I was like, oh, I understand them so much better now. Like, this is just who this child is. And it sometimes it's like the thing that makes the child might just drive you crazy. But if you realize, oh, the reason he is this way or the reason she is this way is because this is what they're going to do in their life. And so I have to help them cultivate it. Now it becomes exciting. When you have a child, especially a girl, moon and Aries, you do everything you can to like put your arms up around her and keep people from breaking her. Right? Oh, ain't nobody gonna break my baby. Not even me. I'm putting my arms around this little hot, fiery. I don't know why she has a moon in Aries, but I'm gonna keep it intact. I'm gonna make sure she never shuts her moon down. Because see, people don't like women who are out there, speaking up, strong. It's not accepted yet. It's not. People aren't comfortable with it yet. Not even other women. First thing some women want to say is, "What's wrong with her? She thinks she knows everything. She's just so aggressive," or whatever. That's why I always say, when we meet women that have a lot of masculine energy, it does not mean that they present masculine, but they, they're opinionated, they're strong, they're going to tell you what they think. And a lot of times these women are not easily offended. It's those of us with all this air and this water and earth. We're the ones that get easily offended because we're so sensitive. Not the ones with air and fire. Women like that, I love dealing with those kind of women, because it's like you can just say what you think. Even if they cuss you out, about 5 minutes down the road, they don't even remember. They laughing with you. It's like, you just cussed me out. Okay, we doing it like that. Isis. So yes, it's so important for us to understand what's going on, to use astrology And we also can begin to use it as we study the past in order to understand what's going on right now. And so I'm going to tell y'all one last thing and I'm going to let you go. Woo, I lose my breath when I think about it, y'all. I remember leading up to 2020, all of the astrologers that I was learning from and listening to kept talking about, well, not all, a lot of them kept talking about how when Uranus moved into Taurus, it was perhaps going to spark a time, and it was some other stuff maybe that was happening that was like the Great Depression. I was like, no. When I first started hearing astrology, even now, some days it's just like, I just have to tell myself, if it's an astrologer that I trust, I just have to take what they say. So they said this was going to be a time where it was akin to the Great Depression. Now, I don't know about everywhere in the world. Oh, another thing that they talked about was the revolt in France. I can't remember. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head right now, but there was this very deadly revolt in France. So they kept talking about those times. And have we not had mass uprisings of all sorts? And it's really not just in the United States. It seems like it is because that's where I am, but people are rising up right now. They're like, we're not taking this crap. And it's all about, more equity, more people being able to just run their own lives, right? And to not just be workhorses and, just to be more free to be human, right? And so they talked about that. And then, of course, we know we had the pandemic affected the world. Now, I don't fully know what it was like everywhere, but they largely talked about the United States having economic crises happen. And like the Great Depression, and we did. We surpassed the Great Depression in terms of how many people were off from work. OMG. I listen to. I'll let you know. There's one that I like, Astro Victor with the K. I listen to Astro Victor. He's my main teacher. I don't listen to a lot of astrologers. And if you're looking for people who are doing something like this, Victor is the one I listen to. Astro Victor with the K. But Victor, as a matter of fact, I like listening to Victor because he has this way of just being like, I'm just going to tell y'all what the astrology said. Because I'm telling y'all, during the last president that was over the United States, during his term, I was having to listen to astrologers every day trying to figure out when are we going to get out of this. And there were several who, when I listened to, I was pretty sure they were right. But I don't like listening to too much spin. Like, don't interject too much. Like, tell me when you're interjecting it. Just give me the astrology and then we can have other discussions over here, right? Because then it makes me wonder how much of this astrology is colored. But there's this guy, Sam, but I don't listen to Sam a whole lot, Jeppy or something like that. I like the Vedic astrologers when they're looking at world events. Vedic astrology to me is so good for looking at world events. But Astro Victor is the one I trust when he's making predictions about, it's called mundane astrology. Mundane astrology is when you're looking at the astrology of the world and what's happening with countries. Every country has its own chart, by the way. And so when it came to him predicting who was going to win for president, another reason I love Victor is he's not from the United States. And so I don't have to listen to him talk about anything with politics because he doesn't know anything. He doesn't live here. And he said, he went through, broke down what was going to happen. He said Biden will win, but there will be a delay in the amount of time before the election is called. And I'm just like, no, I just want Biden to win and it's over, right? Well, we all know what happened. It was like this long delay, like, oh my gosh, it far exceeded. But when I listened to Victor, I just said, okay. So when there was a delay, I was just like, Victor said Biden was going to win. So let me just breathe. With all the weeks, I was like, my hope is in what he said. I'm just trusting the astrologers. I'm not listening to the news. I am trusting Victor. So yeah, he called it, like he nailed it. And so, but I've been able to watch astrologers who you can tell they are biased. I'm like, okay, I'm putting you down. Because I don't do bias. I'm gonna tell you what I see, whether I like it or not. That's the only way to do it. And see, that's where I think, and I really have no proof because I just have not looked at this, but I can imagine astrologers were powerful back in the day. I can imagine. It's just like I'm what, 4 years into my study, 217, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, I've been studying nonstop 4 years. I'm in my 5th year. And, it's like it's endless what you can learn about astrology. And so, I just have a small little piece of it and I can see some stuff. So I can only imagine the ones that can see even more. If you found one or two that were like, hey, come here and let me tell you, this is what I see. Most people don't have these kind of abilities nowadays. I'm just thinking about the old ones. There was no telling, or they're helping the good guys and they're giving the good guys heads up on what's coming. And, the bad guys maybe shut them down. I don't know. But yeah, the world will make you think astrology is no good. And that's very, very sad because it's a lot of people who could be helped. They're making decisions today. And just a month down the path, an astrologer can tell you this decision today, you need to wait till 2 months down the path. A good astrologer can see what it is you need to do. Walking our own path, it is challenging yet so magical when we realize how much we were already doing just organically. I agree, Aquarian T. It's, in my opinion, the best way to live. It really is. And I love it when I do readings for people and it's apparent they are in tune in some kind of way with their chart, which is why I say, Malcolm X didn't know his chart, but he lived that chart out. But who knows who could have, if, we were into astrology back then, who could have told him, hey, on that day, now, hey, when it's your time to go, it's your time to go. That could have been it. In Ifa, it is said there's 2 days set in stone, the day you're born, the day you are to die. However, you can pick an earlier departure date from dying. Like you can die before you were really supposed to. That is possible. So I don't know. I don't know if that was a final date. These leaders tended to know when it was coming. So it probably was the final date. However, an astrologer perhaps could have given Malcolm X some heads up, which, he was so in tune, he probably didn't need heads up. To me, our people were so in tune because they had very little to distract them other than what was at hand, So that's what I have to say about Malcolm X and his charts. I hope that this has been helpful to some of y'all. And yeah, thank you for asking me to talk about this, Johnny. And so, yeah, y'all take care. Thank you so much. And I will see you all in the next video. Let me know what, if any, resonates with you. Did you learn anything today? I would love to know that. All right, y'all take care. Peace and love.